Hi everyone, it is Atia here at Booking It with Atia. Welcome back, or welcome if you're new here. Today we're going to be talking about my weekly wrap-up, so all the books that I read during the previous week. I am once again going to separate this into sections, so we'll start with the novels and novellas that I finished. We'll move into the comics, manga, and manhwa, and then we'll round it out with the picture books as well. So starting out with the novels and novellas with The Candles Are Burning by Veronica G. Henry. This is from an author that I've been wanting to read from for a while, and this is actually an Amazon original short story. I didn't plan to read this first over her other works, it just happened that way. And this one is about a woman who can foretell when death is about to come into her life, and it has a sort of a paranormal fantastical element to it, and it takes place during I forget the exact year, but it's around the period in history when a lot of Black Americans were deciding whether or not to migrate to the North from the South. And so she's in the South and her husband wants to migrate to the North, but she wants to stay where she is. He ends up spontaneously, he ends up dying unexpectedly, and she is forced to reckon with the fact that she did foresee his death and all that comes with. And I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. Next up, we have The Oath by T.M. Richardson. This is a Waichu/reverse harem Black romance. We have our main character whose name just flew out of my head. And when we meet her, she is caring for her terminally ill husband. And the husband, before he passes, he leaves instructions with his 3 best friends to take care of his wife in any way that she needs. And this ends up becoming a interesting romantic sexual relationship between the 3 best friends and our main female protagonist, who, again, I forgot the name. I loved this. The character development and that went into this was incredible, and I loved that our protagonist really had to grapple with the fact that she had ignored herself and all aspects of herself while caring for her husband for the past 2 years. And all the men in this were very different, but also equally amazing at the same time. And you could really tell that they all cared and loved her, and I ended up giving this one 5 stars. Then we have Room to Dream by Kelly Yang. This is the 3rd book in the Front Desk series. This is a middle grade contemporary novel, and this follows Mia. This takes place during the 90s. This follows Mia, and she's dealing with a lot. So she takes a trip back to China, which is where she's from, for the first time in 5 years since she initially emigrated from China to the United States. And she, is dealing with that feeling of sort of feeling like a little bit of an outsider. But while she is in China, her grandfather gets her an opportunity to start writing for the national Chinese, youth newspaper, if you will. Like, this is a newspaper that is specifically for young readers, preteen readers. And, most of their stuff, if not all of their stuff, previously had been written by adults. And so the editor of this magazine gives Mia a column because he really loves her writing and what she writes about and how she writes it. And this is also a way for the readers to better grasp English, which is something that they focus on as well. And the entire novel doesn't take place in China. I think maybe around 30 or 40%, she ends up back in the United States, and she's dealing with gentrification as well, because you have these big chains popping up, and when they return from China, they find out that a huge hotel motel chain mega corporation has bought out their 2 neighbors / competitors, and they are trying to run them out of business. On top of that, we have Mia dealing with some things with her 2 best friends. So Lupe has been put in high school English and math classes, and they're in middle school. So she's been put in high school English and math classes. So for half the day, she's not with Mia, and they also don't have any middle school classes in common. And you have some tension there because Mia feels as if Lupe is leaving her behind and doesn't care about her anymore. And then you have Mia and Jason. This book, man, I didn't like Jason in the first book. Like, no one's supposed to like Jason in the first book. And then Jason is a little suspicious in the second book. But this book, I was like, Mia, just like punch him in the face. He has liked Mia romantically since the first book. That's not a spoiler. And these feelings begin to manifest in very negative ways towards other people, especially Mia. And so their relationship becomes very fraught. I do appreciate how the author handled that, though, and how the author handled the idea of consent and the idea of not feeling entitled to someone's body or someone's emotions or feelings, especially when it comes to the relationship between young girls and young boys, and how Mia feels so much guilt and responsibility that truly is not hers to own, and she has to wade through that. And I really appreciated that. I ended up giving Room to Dream 4.5 stars. Last up, y'all, I finally, where is it? Finished Promise by Rachel Eliza Griffiths. This book is absolutely incredible. I have a bunch of, as you can see, a bunch of tabs. I also have a bunch of notes. So I'm just gonna read from the notes for a little bit. First note I have is that it almost brought me to tears at the end. Almost brought me to tears in several moments too. I really appreciated Cynthi's inner voice. She is just like super hilarious. And Cynthia stands for Hyacinth, and she is our main protagonist. So I guess I should tell you what this is about. This is a historical fiction that takes place during the civil rights era. We are following the perspective of Cynthia, and she is maybe 11. She's preteen. She's 11, and it's about her navigating living in this very racist town with her mom and her dad and her older sister Ezra, as well as one other Black family. And Cynthia is a very precocious child. She's very intelligent, and it details their, I want to say, not day-to-day, but kind of, I'll say day-to-day life in this town, and also just dealing with becoming young Black women and just navigating that journey from Black girlhood to Black young womanhood, and eventually to Black womanhood, because they do have two and eventually three very distinct Black women figures that they can look up to or look to kind of find out how to navigate this. And we also have the perspective of Ezra, who's his sister, Ezra's white best friend Ruth. And I didn't really care for Ruth all that much, but I understood why her perspective was put in here in certain moments, just to show the dichotomy between growing up a little Black girl and growing up a little white girl, a poor white girl, mind you, and how there were some similarities, but not really, and how each of these two different groups of little girls were allowed to and had to navigate those sometimes treacherous waters. And I absolutely loved the complexities of the mother-daughter relationships in this book, and I just found it was so interesting. And I really appreciated that we got different mother-daughter relationships, different types of mother-daughter relationships. And I loved how protective of Cynthia Ezra is. Like, Ezra, even to her own best friend, is like, you're not going to talk to my sister like that. Like, that's, I don't care how out of pocket her mouth is, but you're not about to speak to her like that in my presence. And also, this book has glimpses into the past, into their family line. And I really appreciated that, because it had some very strong commentary on how trauma is passed down through the generations, and how it can be a part of your DNA whether you like it or not. And when you don't address these certain things, they can come up and they can fester, which was really cool. I mean, not cool, but I just thought it was a unique way to do that. And I definitely see myself returning to this story. Like, there are pages, I'll see if I can try and find some, where so much is highlighted and underlined, because the pen was penning. Like, this woman can write. I need to figure out, actually no, I do know. This is her debut novel. But I will definitely have my eye out for more works by Rachel Eliza Griffiths, because this was absolutely incredible. And I don't know if I said it already, but I gave this one 5 stars. Next up, we have comics, manga, and manhwa, starting with the comic Quinn Credible Volume 1. This follows a teen boy, Quinn, in Louisiana. Something happened like about a year ago or a few years ago in this story where I think a meteor hits or something, and a bunch of people end up with these new powers. Quinn is one of them, and he is trying to figure out just how to survive being a Black teen in America. Essentially, his power is being invulnerable. Like, nothing can hurt him that he knows of. His body is invulnerable, which, now that I'm saying, that is such a purposeful superpower to give to a young Black male protagonist, especially considering that you do have some instances of police brutality and you do have some instances of rioting in this comic that are shown, and you do have instances where Quinn's body is assaulted physically and he is able to leave unharmed, but leave physically unharmed, but it still is affecting him mentally. And I really like this. I already put volume 2 on hold at my local library and I need to go pick it up, and I gave this one 4 stars. Then we have Asadora volume 6. I am quickly catching up with Asadora. I have one more volume until I am caught up to where we are so far. This is a scientific horror historical fiction manga that I've been talking about for several weekly wrap-ups, so I definitely implore you to go watch some of my previous weekly wrap-ups if you're curious about what Asador is more in depth. And then I also read volume 2 of The Abandoned Empress. This is a fantasy manhwa about a woman who, a young woman who is thrust back in time, and her 17-year-old consciousness that we meet her with is in her 10-year-old body, and she has been destined or prophesized to be the Empress. But when we meet her, we find out that her husband, the Emperor, loathes her, and so when she is thrust back in time, she is essentially like, I want to change my fate. Like, I am not okay with this. And we're watching her go through this and make these moves as a little girl. And I gave volume 2 3.25 stars. I don't know if I said that I gave Asadora volume 6 4 stars, but I did. And then I also revisited the series Something's Wrong With Us. I picked up volume 17 and I gave it 3.5 stars. This is a romantic thriller manga, and I'm rolling my eyes because honestly this series should have stopped with volume 16. Like, volume 17, 18, and 19, which is the official end, are like an epilogue, and it's like, I don't need an epilogue. I don't need an extended epilogue. I really don't. But, you know, it was a cute story for what it was. I really was thinking the whole time, like, we could have ended this in the last volume, but, you know, it is what it is. And I ended up giving it 3.5 stars because there's a mystery that takes place, and I thought the mystery was really well done. And then I read volume 4 of Akane Banashi. This is a contemporary manga about a young woman who wants to become a ragukuka, which is a performer of a traditional Japanese performance art, and I gave this 4 stars. I read Boys Run the Riot volume 2. This follows a trans boy who is trying to come to grips with the fact that he is indeed trans and trying to make that transition in society as well. But of course it's hard because at school he's constantly misgendered, he's constantly expected to wear a certain uniform, but he has met a friend and together they decide that they're going to create a fashion brand, and we're following their journey of doing that alongside our main character's gender identity journey as well. And I gave Boys Run the Riot volume 2 4.25 stars. Then we have Spy Family volume 11. Y'all, this is the latest installment in the Spy Family series. I gobbled this up. I gave it 5 stars. This was so good. This really raised the stake, and we have been seeing the stakes being risen in the Spy Family series for a few volumes now, but this one really, I was just like, is everyone okay? Like, Are we gonna make it out? Like, what's happening? And this one follows Lloyd Forger, also known as the spy Twilight. He is tasked with finding out information to help his government, and his mission is to create a faux family in order to get this information. And so he ends up marrying Yor. She, unbeknownst to him, is a trained and talented lethal assassin, and she also does not know that he is a spy. And then they have their adopted daughter Anya, who is a telepath. They don't know that she's a telepath, but she knows what they do because, well, she's a telepath. And I mean, I have fallen head over heels with this series, and again, I gave volume 3 5 stars. Then we have Happiness volume 3. This one is a horror manga following a boy who has recently been bitten by a vampire and is grappling with that, and we are continuing on with that story, and I gave volume 3 of Happiness 4 stars. I also read Tokyo Ghoul volume 1. This was a reread for me. I read this about 2 years ago. I initially had given it 3.5 stars when I first read it, but upon rereading it, I was like, Tia, what were you on? Because this is a straight 5-star book, or 5-star volume. This follows our main character who lives in a world, it's a contemporary world, but they acknowledge or have the presence of ghouls, which are these beings that can take the shape of humans, but they feast on human blood and human flesh. And he ends up being attacked by a ghoul, and he gets a organ transplant, and unbeknownst to the doctors, they give him the organs of the ghoul that was attacking him. And so now he is half ghoul, half human, and he's trying to figure out just how to navigate being in this world, or being in both worlds at the same time, and while also trying to just hold on to his humanity. And I really loved it. I thought it was an excellent start to a manga series, and like I said, I gave volume 1 5 stars. Then moving on into the picture books, I finished 8 picture books last week, starting with Happy with My Nappy. This is a really cute picture book that celebrates the versatility of black hair, and it shows an appreciation for the variety of black hairstyles as well, and I gave that 4 stars. Then we have Powwow Day. This follows a native little girl who's working through her feelings of being unable to participate in the powwow due to her illness. You know, she's sad about that, of course, because she didn't ask to be ill. I don't know if it is a chronic disability or if it's something that's just long term, but she's working through those feelings, so she's trying to work through those feelings, and I gave Powwow Day 4 stars. Then we have Grandma's Roof Garden. This was a cute little story about, you know, a little grandma who goes to the market and she only picks out the fruit that you wouldn't want because she takes it back for her garden to make like fertilizer and seeds and feed the animals and things like that. It was a cute little story. I didn't mesh with the artwork, I will say. It was 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional at the same time. Houseway. That'll make no sense. I mean, like, think of the 3 dimensions of your face, right? So but on a 2-dimensional plane. Like, if all 3 dimensions of my face were smushed together on this one side of my face. That's how the artwork was. Why? Who made that choice? And why was it allowed? It creeped me out, if you couldn't tell. And so I gave Grandma's Roof Garden 3 stars. Then we have Coretta, which I feel like there's more to that. Oh yeah, there is more to that title. Then we have Coretta, the autobiography of Mrs. Coretta Scott King. I didn't know much about Coretta Scott King, and aside from the fact that she was married to Dr. King. And I think I'm on this journey of just exploring, dipping my toe into the various different stories of civil rights leaders that we often do not hear about or hear enough about. And doing that through picture books, I think that has just been a really great way for me to do that. And so this is a great introduction to her life and her legacy, separate from, but also alongside Dr. King, because she was doing so much before she even met him, and she was doing so much even after he passed. And I thought that was really cool that it was highlighted in this picture book. And I loved the art style as well. And it had this collage like aspect to it that I really vibed with, and I gave that one 4.5 stars. Next up, we have When We Are Kind. This is a simple message about the different ways of being kind, but it's told from the perspective of an indigenous community, and I thought this was really cool because there were a lot of ways to be kind in this book that I just would not think of from the perspective of a very Western civilization, and so, or westernized society that I have grown up in. And I thought it was really cool just the different ways that this particular indigenous perspective gave to the idea of kindness. And I gave When We Are Kind 3.5 stars. Then I read Kindergarten, Where Kindness Matters Every Day. I loved the story of a little boy who's shy and nervous about a new school year, and he goes into the classroom and his teacher sends a letter like 2 weeks before school starts, and it's like, you know, we're gonna make our kindergarten a kindergarten, and I want you to think of all the different ways you can be kind. And so that's what sets off this book. And I appreciated the message that kindness is both words and actions. And even though it's specifically about a kindergarten boy in a kindergarten classroom, I definitely see a multitude of grades being able to appreciate and learn from it. And I gave Kindergarten 5 stars. Then I read Scroll, which was a book about a young Chinese girl who sees her father, no, not her father, her grandfather doing Chinese calligraphy, and he's using the Chinese characters, and so she begins to learn about them, and they, you know, take her into this like storybook type land where the characters are Chinese, like actual Chinese characters. I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly, but the clip is playing, or it will have been playing, so you can see it. But this relied almost exclusively on dialogue to further the plot, and it felt disjointed because you had to kind of gather what was happening based on the dialogue, and if that wasn't the case, then the dialogue was explaining to you what was happening, which just felt weird and unnatural. I did appreciate the artwork though. The artwork was reminiscent of ancient Chinese scroll artwork, which I thought was a cool way to tie in the theme and also the name of the book, and I gave Scroll 3.5 stars. Then we have Kara's Kindness. This one is about a cat, Kara the cat, and she's all about being kind and passing on kindness and caring about people, and she passes along a kindness to a friend she sees on the side of the ice skating rink, and then that has a ripple effect as each friend passes along the kindness that they got from Kara in the first place. And I loved the message of passing along the kindness we receive from others without expecting anything from it, just passing it along because it is the kind and right thing to do. And that is it for what I read in, you know what's funny, I've just stopped writing the date about like when these take place. So that is it for what I read during the week of April 12th. Was it? Whatever that Monday was. I think it was the 12th. That's what we're going to go with. Was it the 12th? Y'all, the 12th was a Friday. The week of April 8th or April... Yeah, the week of April 8th. That's what I read. All right, now to talk about everything that I made progress in after I look back in my reading journal. I made progress in the following 4 books. Technically Yours by Denise Williams, Blood Over Bright Haven by M.L. Wang, Cece Rios and the Queen of Brujas by Kayla Rivera, and Lyric by Gray Huffington. So all of that totals to be 2,348 pages and 4 hours, 53 minutes of audiobook listening. And that is it for my weekly wrap up. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to give this video a huge thumbs up. Make sure you are subscribed and that you hit the notification bell so you are notified every time I release a new video. All of my links are down below, as well as the links to my social media, my Amazon wish list, my Etsy shop, and my Pingle book storefront. And I will see you in another video. Bye.
Showing. I ain't living for the moment. I see what's mine and I want it. Hungry like a Pac-Man. I'm Bruce Wayne and Batman. I'm Naruto with a Hanzo. Got a sharp mind like I'm Einstein. Plus I'm copywriting, so it's all mine. Check it for me, I'm in the sky.